Hi, I'm Sarah Stowe and I'm here with Greg Nathan, founder of Franchise Relationship Institute. Greg, can you tell us in essence what your business actually does?
Yes, we started the Franchise Relationships Institute in 1989 actually, it's 25 years ago.
Oh, congratulations.
And we have a mission to help franchisees and franchisors create profitable partnerships. And it grew out of the realisation that the most successful franchisees and the most successful franchisor organisations had good, healthy relationships with each other. So I thought that's a worthwhile thing to create a business around.
So what are some of the signs of a healthy relationship? What would a potential franchisee, for instance, spot in a business that would indicate that there was a healthy relationship?
I think the first thing is to ask people, what's it like to work here? So you would talk to the franchise or management team and say, hey, if you were visiting the head office, tell me a little bit about what you do and what it's like here, because that's telling you about the culture of the company. The culture is how we do things around here.
Yeah.
And of course, you've got to interview, I would suggest probably about 10 franchisees at least, and asking them the questions such as, if you had your time over, would you do it again? Would you recommend this franchise to me, and if so, why?
Right.
I would even ask them straight out, like, how much money did you think you would make from the business when you set out on this venture, and how are you going against your targets?
Okay.
Because sometimes people may not quite be profitable yet because some businesses take time to ramp up. But it's interesting to know how people are tracking against their objectives.
One of the things that you do is quite a bit of research amongst franchisees and
That's
franchisors.
right, yeah.
So what are your latest sort of findings about franchisee performance?
Yeah. What we've discovered is that successful people in particular have a good network of, we call it family and social support. So that would be not only the direct family supportive of the business venture, but they would have friends or colleagues that they could use as a sounding board. When they get into the franchise system, they build relationships with their fellow franchisees, so they can kind of share advice and tips and so on. They might even have breakfast maybe once a month together and share, their problems and their challenges. It's interesting that, that old saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. It is true. So that's one area very important. The other area is just attitude. And I would be very specific that you have an attitude that whatever situation you find yourself in, you're looking for the solution. If it's a problem, well, how do I fix this? So it's sort of future oriented, and you could say it's a form of optimism. So we find successful franchisees have this attitude of, not only am I always looking for solutions, that no matter what's going on, I'll find something good in the situation. So it's like that attitude of gratitude, very important. And the third thing is that they feel good about the product or the service and that they're offering, and it forms what we call brand passion. That I'm really proud about what I do, I'm proud of the service that I provide, and that's infectious. So if you do employ staff, the culture of your business comes from you, from the top. So if you're enthusiastic and you've got that sense of pride, your staff pick it up. And then the customers pick it up when they come into the business, and it's a win-win for everybody.
So leadership is very important even at a franchisee level?
Yeah, everybody is a leader. When you think about, if you are in a position of influencing other people, you are by definition a leader. Leaders influence others. And so the franchisee is definitely a leader. Now, if you're going into a business which involves employing maybe 5 or more staff, you've really got to take a good hard look at yourself and say, do I enjoy developing people? If you're going to be working with young people, it's like, do I have the tolerance and the desire to develop young people? And most people do, because, like if you're a parent, your mission in life is to develop your children. So we find that franchisees really get a lot of satisfaction out of creating a career path for their staff. And it's like, the attitude is, well, if my children worked for that person, how would I like them to be treated, and sort of reciprocating in that way. So leadership's critical, yeah.
And what about the drivers of franchisees? What are the two main
The motivators?
things? Yeah, that really...
Yeah, look, people are motivated to do stuff for all sorts of reasons. we find, 60% of people would fall under these two things. So one is desire for money. I want to create wealth, and that's not a bad thing to go into a business for. The thing about that, though, is what we've discovered is that if people become too obsessed with, I'm only here to make the money, they can become dissatisfied, because how much is enough? Right. So you've got to be very clear how much money over what time frame. Do you want to make your money on the way out, or do you want to make your money along the way? Because you can make your money through ongoing profitability. Some people want to build a business up and then make a return when they sell the business, like on their capital. The other motivator is flexibility, and to be able to do the things you want to do that perhaps you can't do when you're in a job reporting to a manager and you have to be at work, at a certain time. So I think it was about 27% of franchisees are primarily driven by flexibility. But what we're finding is that those people don't make as much money as the people who are driven by money, right. Which is not surprising, because it's where your focus goes, sort of the energy flows. So a warning to people that are driven by just flexibility and life balance: if your business isn't profitable, you're not sustainable, you're not going anywhere, including a holiday, because you won't have the money for it. So you've got to take your responsibilities to run that business profitably seriously. The franchisor is going to be expecting you to expand that business if you're given a territory, and that can cause conflict if you're not working your territory. It'd be like moving into a house and you're only going to live in one room of the house and the rest of the house is left to gather dust. The owner of the house wouldn't be too happy about that. So keep your eye. I think it's a balance of both. People who are too obsessed with money often find that their life slips them by, and then they're like, is that all there is? I've got all this money, I've got this big house, my kids are growing up, I don't see them, what happened? But people who are just in it for the fun as well can sometimes get themselves into trouble financially.
And what about the balance of power between the franchisee and the franchisor? That's always a little bit tricky, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Have you got any tips for...
I got lots of tips.
for new franchisees coming in to a business?
I think, don't give away your power. You are ultimately responsible for this business, right? So you've got to think about, if I'm going to employ staff, I will take responsibility for the staff I employ. I will take responsibility for the service levels I provide to my customers, and I will take responsibility for the standards in my business. Now, the franchisor is going to be looking at you saying, well, are you doing all the right things? You shouldn't be waiting for them to be checking up on you. It's like a bit childish, isn't it? Like a parent checking up on the child. So you go into that business with open eyes saying, I will be responsible if this succeeds or not. And you make sure you demand from your franchisor a high level of service. The things that they've promised you when they were so keen for you to buy into that brand, you take notes of those things, and you make sure that you're getting the training that you need, you're getting the support you need when you need it. And if you believe that the franchisor is not delivering at a professional level, you should raise that with the relevant person. But you raise it in a sensible way. You give evidence as to why you're not satisfied with what you're getting, and even preferably come up with a solution to say, look, what I would find helpful is if my field consultant, instead of just doing a checklist with me and not giving me any advice, I also want some advice on how to grow my sales. So that would be an example of asking for what you need. But having the attitude of respect, mutual respect, and you were asking me earlier about what are the signs of a healthy kind of organisation. You do see this mutual respect. You hear it in the language that people use when they're talking about franchisees, or where the franchisees are talking about the franchisor. You pick it up in the tone of voice. When someone looks down their nose at someone else, it comes through, and even if they say all the right things, you're thinking something's not quite right. So keep your ear out for that. And keep your ears and eyes open for the level of passion that the head office people have for the brand, because you're going to sign up for this organisation for maybe 5 years or maybe longer. The average tenure for a franchisee in Australia is nearly 7 years, so it is a long-term commitment. And always remember that ultimately it's all about the customer. Everyone needs to remember that. So if any franchisors are listening to this, they need to also remember the franchisee is vitally important, but ultimately happy customers are why we exist.
Okay, fantastic. Some really helpful tips. Thanks
Thank
for your
you.
time, Greg.
Good. Thanks, Sarah.